What is going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. You're officially tuned in to a very special edition of the HFWB podcast series. I am your host, Clifton Pope, and with me today, I have a very special gentleman who's quickly become a very great friend of mine because of the similar philosophies that we share. And it's like, I remember when I first met him, it was like we instantly clicked. We had a wonderful conversation about all things just about life within itself and most importantly about mental health. This man is a mental health advocate at his finest. He's a licensed professional counselor for the South Texas Mental Health Associates. He's a speaker. And did I mention he's an author and he just put out a book called Lift? I mean, no big deal. He's just comparing his book to his idol now on the Amazon list last time I checked. If you haven't figured out who I'm talking about by now, please welcome Mr. Tim Tate to the HFWB podcast series. Tim, it's a pleasure to have you on, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for that introduction. That was amazing.
No, of course, man. You deserve a great introduction for the great things that you're currently accomplishing at this moment, Tim. It's a pleasure for you to be a part of this. And overall, before we get to, of course, everything that's going on with your book that you just put out and stuff, we got to let people know about Tim Tate, the man. And people don't realize your story and what you went through. And I remember when we met and talked, you were telling me about your overall overcoming depression and everything, and that it hit me because it's like we all have battles that everyone sees us fighting, right? And then at the same time, we have battles that no one doesn't see fighting. And depression is a battle that a lot of people are fighting behind closed doors. Everyone has dealt with it at one point. I remember whenever you told me, as far as whenever you were overcoming the depression, and then 9/11 happened, and something about 9/11 that just flipped the switch within everybody, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But something about that time flipped the switch to where it was like you wanted to do better. Tim, I want you to explain a little bit of your background and just overcoming that and helping you become the person that you are at this exact moment, to paint the picture for those listening. Uh-huh. You good, Tim? Can you hear me?
Is that my internet connection? What do you think?
No, no, no. It's all right. It's all right. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we were currently experiencing on the HFWB podcast series, but we're back on listening to Mr. Tim Tate, and he is in the middle of telling his story, of course, within the last 2021 year battle of how he was overcoming his depression to become the man that he currently is today.
Okay, so 20 years ago, slipping into my first of three depressions, I had no idea what was happening. I, of course, thought the worst was happening. I thought I was dying, which, of course, didn't help the depression. And I didn't know quite what to do, but I started to figure out things that I could do to help myself, and some amazing people showed up in my life to help me do that, and they said I needed to do something to help people. People were helping me, but then it was a few months later, because that was the beginning of the summer of 2001, and then in September of 2001, of course, 9/11 happened, and when I saw the World Trade Center go down, something inside me had to do something. I needed to do something to help other people. So I decided at that point in time that I was going to do something, and the opportunity came to me to go back to school. So I took the opportunity to go back to school if I was going
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. hmm And that is wonderful because it's like you're painting the picture, Tim, as far as to what you went through, showing, hey, this is what I went through. This is the blueprint on how you can overcome whatever kind of depression or anxiety or anything like that. Because it's like, it's crazy within itself on how that works out for the most part. But overall, and throughout all the people that you've helped out, Tim, what is one of the most memorable moments you can recall to where you feel like you've made it?
so memorable moments, memorable moments.
All right, we are back, Tim. I was going to ask you, as far as everyone
Memorable
you've been
moments.
helping out, most importantly, throughout your
Yeah,
journey, Tim, can you recall one moment to where you feel like, man, I really did make an impact on this person's life for
sure.
the greater good?
Sure. Yeah. So I became a counselor because I went to work with a man back when I was a hairstylist. I didn't start off doing this out of high school. I floundered in
Yeah.
college and decided at some point I needed to do something. So I became a hairstylist because a friend of mine had become a hairstylist, and he was a whole lot of fun to hang out with. So I thought that would be the way to go. Ended up not being my thing. Nothing against hairstylists. They're some of the best people I've ever met when I did that for 10 years. But it was at the end of that 10 years that I met a hairstylist who owned a salon who had become a counselor. So when I met that person and went to work for that guy, he helped me, inspire me to go back to school. and help other people. So I became a counselor. So during the past 9 years that I've been in private practice helping other people, I've had 2 clients who have decided to go back to school to become counselors to help other people. So it just kind of goes on. Yeah.
That's incredible, Tim. It's like you're, in a way, in due time, it's like you're becoming a vessel, and the information is just flowing through you and passing it on to the next person, and now you have them on a path to where they're going to become counselors, hopefully making an impact on the next person's life for those who need it and everything. And now it's like you went from doing all this, Tim, to basically putting together like a simple guide to like basically mental health and a holistic antidote to depression, kind of like what you say in your book here. And for those who are listening to the podcast right now and not watching it on YouTube, I'm basically holding up a copy of Tim Tate's book called Lift. It's an incredible book within itself. At this very moment, y'all, I have it in my reading rotation, and I am literally halfway through reading it. So it says a lot, and it's like seeing the reactions from social media, seeing what this man's doing as far as on Amazon. He pretty much has a bestseller, and he just doesn't realize it, but he didn't think it would come to this. But overall, Tim, explain the process just putting this piece of art together.
Oh, thank you for calling it a piece of art, because the cover does look pretty good, doesn't it? And that wasn't me. That was someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So when I wrote the book, or when I knew I wanted to write the book, I knew early on in private practice that I wanted to have something to give to clients that they could reference, because I know when people come to see me, they're not feeling good, whatever they're experiencing, whether it be depression, anxiety, and I know a lot of people's attention span isn't as sharp as we would like it to be. So I knew that there'd be some information that if I put it into a book form, that I could give it to clients, and that they would have something that they can look through and remind themselves of things that we had talked about in sessions. So everything that I talk about in my sessions, my private practice sessions with clients, is in the book. So it was first written for clients so that they could reference, so they could go back and read over things that we talk about, and things that I explain, and things that I ask them to do. But it also became something that I wanted to give to people who were thinking about talking to a therapist, but were hesitating, were holding off, because I've had a significant number of people tell me when they eventually schedule an appointment to see me that they had had my number for weeks, even months, before reaching out. So
they were just holding back
because I know, again, people aren't feeling good, and there's this unknown of what therapy is, and a lot of times, that unknown, which is our number one greatest fear that we all have, is the unknown. So if there's something unknown and we're not feeling good, and we think that whatever that is not going to be, something that is going to be a pleasant experience, then we're probably going to put it off. So I wanted to explain in the book what potentially therapy is like, the things that we talk about in therapy. So one, they can get an idea that it's not so bad, and two, they can even maybe get started on doing some things for themselves while they're waiting. So it was kind of for people who are already in therapy and people who are thinking about going to talk to somebody.
And therapy is definitely necessary as far as overcoming any situation, good or bad, regardless. The one thing that stuck out to me so far reading your book, Tim, is the way, and we've talked about this when we met, is this cognitive triangle, which is not necessarily brand new, but at the same time, it's not necessarily that old. And it's kind of like, I always like to talk about the mind-body-spirit connection, which is why I say what's health without movement, what's wealth without work, what's knowledge without character. And the way you break down the cognitive triangle, that's where I feel like our philosophies kind of align, because it's like thoughts, emotions, and actions, they basically are interchangeable within each other. I want you to break down to the people listening to the HFWB podcast series, Tim, the importance of this cognitive triangle and how it could simply just change just the simple things and the little things in life.
Okay. So, I was introduced to this triangle in one of my early experiences out of graduate school when I worked for a state agency, specifically with families. And I walked into a room and I saw this triangle on a dry erase board. And I was, of course, learned about CBT in my program, in my graduate program, but I had never seen it on a triangle before. And so this triangle, at the top of the triangle, the top corner was the word thoughts, and on the left corner of the triangle said emotions, and then on the right side of the triangle said actions. And it was explained to me that this is the CBT formula that we used. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, assumes that if you want to change your emotions, the way that you feel, then you focus on your cognitions, your thoughts, and your behavior, your actions, so that if you somehow work to change your thoughts and actions, then that is going to affect your emotions, because the thoughts, emotions, and actions are always affecting each other on this triangle. And it was explained that this is what we use to teach kids. It's so simple that a child can understand it and apply it. And of course, my thought was, why are we waiting until after kids have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety? Why aren't we teaching this to kids, to anybody, beforehand? So I always had it in my mind that I was going to use it somehow. And I don't work with kids anymore. I work with adults. But if adults if we as adults have never learned this simple concept, it's a game changer. And it helps people understand that, and this comes from Stoicism. So this triangle was used primarily with the cognitive behavioral movement in the 70s as far as therapy goes, but its origin comes from Stoicism like 2,000 years ago. So they made it into a therapy in the 70s, and we're still using it to teach people how to use it. So I was trained as a therapist to teach my clients to become their own therapist. Meaning, if I teach you the simple model, the simple formula, and you learn how to use it yourself, then you become your own therapist. Which doesn't mean that, you're not going to need someone like me, because like you said, it's important that we talk to somebody. Therapy is necessary, because the whole talking to someone, getting it out, which I call dispelling darkness. Honest communication is the number one rule in therapy, because if we're not honest, things don't change. So getting out whatever is going on inside of us and talking and telling it to another person that might help us validate the way we're feeling, or maybe help us see another way to look at the situation that we're in, because if we change the way we look at the situation can somehow change. So that triangle is kind of, it explains mental health, and mental health is how our thoughts affect our emotions, affect our actions, which affect our thoughts, which affect our emotions. So that triangle is always kind of going back and forth, our thoughts affecting emotions and actions, and just kind of creating a loop back and forth. So that triangle pretty much explains mental health, which is just the state of our thoughts, which affects our emotional health, which is the state of our emotions, which affects our behavioral health, which is the state of our actions.
Yes, I agree with everything you just said 100%, Tim. And I want to say this, you alluded to very one special statement. It's so simple that a kid could understand it, which is why I say here on the HFWB podcast series, Tim, we need to put this out there as far as like a petition or something, right? To where the cognitive triangle needs to go like in kindergarten, for instance, to start them right there, right when they're learning their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s like we all are taught. They can learn the cognitive triangle and basically be like, thoughts, what we think affects how we act or feel. Actions, how we act affects how we think and feel. And like you said, emotions, how we feel affects what we think and do. You put that in there for kindergarten all through elementary, I feel like we'll have a better future generation of basically just overall people just who understand the importance of mental health and who will know how to overcome it with the necessary tools within that. And I feel like that's absolutely necessary, and I feel like we should start a petition on that, Tim. I'm surprised you haven't been doing that yourself, man. You really should.
I actually I'm in talks right now with certain groups, some local state representative. A local state representative. I'm talking to or with our Nueces County mental health director for doing some education and programs with out at TAMU CC and out at one of our high schools. So that we're working on it. But yes, 100%. If we could get that simple triangle into every classroom, so that we can teach people the importance of something that I didn't learn until I was in my 30s. So when I was in my 30s and I met this guy when I was a hairstylist, and when I told him everything that was going wrong in my life, and all of these other people and situations that were causing me to feel the way that I was feeling, and he stopped me and he said, "You sure do blame a lot of people and things that are happening on the way that you feel." And he said, "Do you know what personal responsibility is?" And at almost 33 years old, I didn't even know how to respond. And he said, "Let me tell you, personal responsibility means however you feel is because of how you choose to think about whatever situation you're in and what you choose to do. So you can think about a situation one way or a person, or you could think about that person or situation another way. There's always more than one way to think or act about something. So you ultimately can choose how you think or choose what you do, which means that you choose how you feel, because that's where your emotions come from. You know, we grow up saying things like, my parents made me mad, or my teacher ticked me off, or whatever that is, but it really wasn't them making us mad. We just didn't like whatever they were telling us to do. So I think we got it in our minds that it was something on the outside that was causing us to feel something on the inside. But what we tell people is, if you're feeling something coming from the inside, the origin is somewhere near there. It's somewhere inside of us. So we really can't change, and this is what Stoicism says, if you can't control what's happening on the outside, control what's happening on the inside, and the rest will work itself out.
Exactly.
So if we can do that, let's teach kids how to do that.
No, I agree with that completely, and that's something that should have been taught and put into many schools and organizations and institutions a long time ago. But I want to ask you this, Tim, based on everything you went through within your own personal journey, for that person listening to this episode of the HFWB podcast series, going through their own depression, lost in the world, what would be your 3 key pieces of advice you would tell them?
So 3 is the magic number, right? So what I learned with this mind, body, spirit, the 3 parts that make us one whole person. The concept of whole health is that there's 3 parts that make us a whole person. So we do something every day for each of those three parts. And I understand, when people aren't feeling good, I get it. I was there. I didn't feel like doing anything. But we shouldn't let our feelings, our negative feelings, make our decisions for us. So even though I was depressed, depressed like not wanting to get out of bed, depressed, and walking
Right.
in wet cement, kind of depressed. In fact, I called myself The Walking Dead before there was ever a TV series, because that's what it felt like. Even though I did not feel good, it didn't stop me from doing the things that I needed to do to take care of myself. So I figured out that by doing something every day for my mind, and doing something every day for my body, and doing something every day to strengthen my spirit, those were the three keys to getting me out of depression. So I'll just run through it real quick. So the three things to do every day for your mind. The first, like I said before, is honest communication. The second is somehow continuing education, learning something new, introducing something new, like what Zig Ziglar said, whatever you input shapes your outlook, which affects your output. So I want to make sure that I'm introducing something that's helpful, that's informative, because if someone watches bad news all day and they just have bad news coming in, what is that going to do for their outlook, which is going to affect their output? And then, of course, mindful meditation, which is the ability to know where your thoughts are at any given point in the day and be able to bring yourself back to the present, where usually we're okay. If we're not okay, it's usually because we're in a past that's not in our favor, or we're in a future in our minds that's not in our favor. So communication, education, meditation, those three things, somehow, some way, every day for the mind will bring you peace of mind. For the body, it's always making better choices in as far as nutrition, exercise, and sleep, getting adequate amounts of each, and that just means making better choices, and that will never change. That's just the way it is. And then spirit, when I talk about spirit, Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of spirit is the animating principle which gives life to physical organisms. So basically, spirit is power, and it's how we connect to power. And our connections are our relationships, and our relationships can either be very empowering or very disempowering. So the breakdown in the relationships is the first relationship is always the big one. Right? Your relationship with your higher power, with life itself, whatever your beliefs are, you somehow practice that every day. The second is the relationship with yourself, specifically your higher self, that part of you that always knows the right thing to do. And if we give into that at the end of the day, we're so glad that we did. But a lot of times we might give into our lower self, that part that doesn't feel like doing the right thing to do. And at the end of the day, we're usually regretting it. So we want to strengthen that relationship with our higher self. And then, of course, the last is our relationship with all other people. And we want to invest our energy, connect with people who see us, hear us, understand and validate us, not the people who take advantage of us. And, of course, we want to be there. We want to be the person to see and hear and validate other people as well. So those are the three things for the three parts of us every day. That sounds a lot to a depressed person, but it's not asking somebody to do something extra. A lot of times it's just asking people to do things different. These are things that we're already doing somehow, or we're not doing, because usually we're not being honest. We don't have enough information about what's going on. We're in the past or future that's not good for us. We're not making good decisions as far as what we eat, and we're not exercising, and our sleep schedule is off, and we're disconnected. We don't have something to do every day that recognizes where we are with life and what we're doing to improve that. We're giving into our lower selves, and a lot of times, we're left open to being taken advantage of by other people. So we just ask that we do all of that different. Not extra, just different.
And that's all it takes, Tim, is just switching things up, and you'd be surprised on how much everything begins to pile up once you do that.
Sure.
And everything you just said is just beautiful and just well said, by the way. I mean,
Thank you.
you'd be surprised on how just simple, honest communication can build relations. You could be surprised on how mindful meditation can help just slow things down and quiet things down and just feel out everything around you to where you feel like, okay, this is what's going on, I need to do this, and you just piece it back together mentally up here. And at the same time, it's just beautiful on how you said just everything you said overall within itself, Tim. But overall, we're going to get a little bit deeper into you, and I'm going to ask you basically a list of questions as far as what I ask everybody on the podcast, just to get people a feel of who you are as a person. Tim, my first question is simple. What is the first thing you do or think of every single morning that you wake up every single day?
The first thing is, well, of course, my cat is right next to me, so I always reach over and pet my my cat, Waylon. So make sure that he's okay, and then honestly, the first thing I do is I come into my my living room, and I sit down on my couch. And I have a gratitude journal, and I always start my day with making at least one entry of something that I'm grateful for, and sometimes there are 2 or 3 things. So I always start the day off with well, of course I'm grateful to have my cat, but of course I'm also grateful. I acknowledge some kind of gratitude, and the trick about practicing gratitude is it's got to be something different every day. So the challenge is to fill up pages full of different things, and they can be small things, they can be big things, but it's just that practice of focusing on what's right in our lives, because it's just real easy, and they say we've been doing it since we were hunting and gathering, to focus on what's wrong in our lives. So it's kind of like we have to override that age-old program of what's wrong with what's right, and so I start every day with that.
No, that's beautiful, and that's something I challenge everybody to do as well. Spend at least the first hour of your day doing some sort of journaling, because you'd be surprised on how just writing down how you're feeling at the exact moment, what's been going on, and what you're grateful for can just make a big difference in your overall day and just your overall life within itself. I definitely encourage you to do it, and you see Tim is already doing it himself, so what is that telling you? My next question, Tim, is what is health and wealth in your own personal eyes?
So health and wealth is, just the first thing that came to mind is, you pay now or pay later, which means make the investments in taking care of yourself now, and if that involves a cost, and eating better or paying for a yoga class or whatever that is, make that investment now, because that'll prevent you from having to pay the big cost later on in life if something goes wrong. A lot of what I say is, mental health is like physical health. We really don't pay attention to it until something goes wrong. So what we get to do, we don't have to do. We don't have to do anything. We get to do everything. Everything is a choice. It's just make better decisions. Again, what I say is healthcare is self-care. And we have to take care, we have to be responsible in taking care of ourselves, because no one else is going to do it for us. So, and this is the only vehicle that we get in this life, so we need to treat it better so that it runs well for a lifetime.
That's beautiful. That's beautifully well said, Tim. I mean, I couldn't agree any more on that. I'm going to put you on the spot on this one, because I know you're a big practicer, practice this very well on both. If you had to choose which one to practice for the rest of your life, yoga or meditation?
Well, meditation. It's got to be meditation. Because meditation. No, let me say this because I know we have mutual friends who are yoga people, and
I know.
yoga is
I just have to do
awesome,
it.
and it's a great practice, and it is one of the number one practices that we recommend to people who have experienced trauma. So yoga is absolutely something to do, but meditation, specifically mindful meditation, you can do it anywhere at any time. I even do it in the line while I'm in line at HEB. I mean, if you're standing there, instead of being distracted by, the tabloids and the candy and what's holding up the line, you can just stand in line, feel the ground beneath your feet, take a mindful breath, which just means you're paying attention to the breath coming in and holding it for a few seconds, and then the breath going out. And whenever you're focused on your breathing, you're in the present, which means you're okay. Because a lot of times we're focused on something, what's holding up the line, and that tabloids, that's ridiculous, and we might be making a bad decision on like grabbing a piece of candy or whatever that is. But if you take that time just to be present, you're going to leave that store probably better than when you went in. So that's my answer.
And just for the record, we are not saying one is better than the other. As a matter of fact, we recommend y'all do both for the greater good, for the mind, body, and spirit.
But I like I said, I say meditation because I do it all day. I mean, I'm always just focused on my breathing. It's something that I teach clients, so I'm fortunate enough that I get to practice it all day long with people. But that is a big game changer, mindfulness, and it's so simple. Again, even kids are doing it these days, and it's that thing that they told us to do when we were in school. They told us to pay attention. They told us to control ourselves. They told us to let go of things that were bothering us, but they never showed us how. And mindfulness meditation is how to do those things. So I'm so glad that we're seeing it in schools. Mostly on the East Coast and the West Coast. It's just going to take some time to get down here to this coast, but it's on its way. And there are people here that we know that are doing it, so I'm grateful for that.
Yes, indeed, Tim. Now, whenever you're not doing everything that you're currently doing on a regular basis, what are some of your personal favorite hobbies you like to do?
Hobbies for me, and these are, my hobbies are like my daily routines and things that I like to do. It's just these topics, the mind, body, spirit topics. I'm just always wanting to learn more. So what I usually like to do, and I'm fortunate enough to live in this beautiful city by the bay, on the bay. So my morning time, which is precious to me, is usually spent near the water doing my mindful meditation, but also listening to something. I'm always wanting to learn something new about any of these topics, mind, body, or spirit. That's why I like to say this is the stuff I like to roll it around in. So I roll around in these topics every morning. So I'm walking. I'm doing like all of these things because these are the things that I tell people to do, that I ask people to do. If someone is going to take medicine to treat themselves better as far as recovering from depression, if you're going to take medicine to treat yourself better, then these are the things that you could be doing yourself to treat yourself better. And a lot of these things like exercise and meditation are just as effective as prescription antidepressant and anti-anxiety medications, and the side effects are so much better. So I like to do these things. These hobbies are like my daily rituals. So I do them every day. They're just daily habits.
I'm glad you said that, Tim, because I am just as guilty myself. When I think of hobbies I like to do, it's like, hey, I'm pretty much, my daily routine are my hobbies. I love reading, I love writing, I love meditating, I love doing yoga, lifting weights, jogging, being by the water, all the stuff that you just said. It's just sometimes you got to take your hobbies and turn them into your routine, and that's how you fall in love with it in the process in the first place. And some people don't understand that, and I'm glad you made that point, because you're probably one of the very few people who's made a point like that on the HFWB podcast series. But I have one last question I want to ask you,
Sure.
Tim, and I know this is going to be an interesting one for yourself. If you had to go back, had the opportunity, right, to go back in time and to talk to yourself, say 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? And at the same time, where do you see yourself personally, Tim, in the next 10 years?
So, 10 years ago, I was just telling a friend this morning. So 10 years ago, I used to, when I wasn't feeling good, I was depressed, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I knew that I had made not good decisions as far as relationships and career, and everything had crumbled, and I didn't know what was going to be next. That big unknown, which was a big part of my depression, all of those regrets. There was a poster on my wall, and this poster, and I'll just say this, so it was a poster that said, "And he shall be called," and it was all of the biblical names of Jesus Christ. And I would look at this poster, and there were words like advocate, teacher, counselor, author. And I would look at this poster, and I would pray, could I be these things somehow, some way? If you would just let me, help me, guide me to be some of these words. And also Man of Sorrows was on there too, and I completely related to that. So, but if I could be these things, these words. And so 10 years ago, I was looking at that poster. So if I can go back and tell my 10-year ago self anything, I would tell myself, you did it. You made it.
I love it.
And then 10 years from now, I mean, I still got big dreams. I would like to see my book, the things in my book, come to life, as far as events, physical events, locations, places, identifying where people can go to do something every day for the mind, body, spirit, creating community, getting people together and helping each other out, because in the end of the book, I say the 3 reasons why we're all here. The first is that we're here to evolve. The second is we're here to help each other. And the third is we're all here to help each other evolve. So if I could see that happen more and be a part of making that happen in 10 years, that's hopefully I'll be able to come back and tell myself you did it again.
Most importantly is, Tim, hey man, you did it, and you're going to continue to do it in only the best way you know how to do it. Now, Tim, man, let people know how they can get in contact with you for anything, and most importantly, let the people know where they can purchase a copy of your book right here, Lift.
So the book right now is exclusively on Amazon Books. So just go to Amazon.com, type in Lift, Tim Tate, and the book will come up. And it's a pretty reasonable price right now. My website is www.timtatelpc.com, and you can contact me there. And I'm also at timtatelpc@gmail.com.
And I wanted to just let people know, please go get Tim Tate's book. I mean, it's a great book. It's definitely going to open up your mind. It's going to open up your body, and it's going to open up the spirit, which is what basically he's trying to do from the get-go. And it's like he says at the end, I mean, we're all here to evolve, so let us continue to evolve for the greater good. Let us all continue to help each other and come together in the form of unity in the community. And I feel like once those things happen, sky's the limit. The world's going to be a much more peaceful place, as it should be. And with that being said, Tim, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Congratulations on the success of your book, Lift. It's going to continue to do great more success. And overall, man, just thank you for hanging out with yours truly on the HFWB podcast series.
Well, thank you, Clifton. It was a pleasure being here and talking to you, as always.
Of course, Tim. And for yours truly, Clifton Pope from Health, Fitness, Wealth, Business, that's another episode of the HFWB podcast series. Y'all stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed. Until